It's a question that you've answered probably 100,000 times, and you're going to have to indulge me and ask 100,001. What's the difference between ice cream and custard? Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and for all the great spots that we have for ice cream in Omaha, there really just aren't that many custard spots. I mean, yeah, you can throw out a Freddy's, you can throw out Culver's, and I have much love for Culver's, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about local spots and that put a little bit extra care into it. And that's something that I discovered at the operation that my guest runs today. Her name is Hannah Sheffield. She is the owner and operator of Sprinkle Joy Custard. Hannah, it is so exciting to welcome you to the show. I know a little bit of your story, but I can't wait to hear more. Thank you so much for coming on and making it happen today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
I bet I could give you one guess, and you know exactly what question I'm going to lead off with. It's a question that you've answered probably 100,000 times, and you're going to have to indulge me and ask 100,001. What's the difference between ice cream and custard? So we have a baseline, so everybody knows what we're getting into here. They're very similar, but they are different.
Yep.
How is custard different?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking about putting a sign in my shop about it because, I mean, I don't mind talking about it, but I think some people don't ask. And it is kind of a big difference. I think if you Google it, we'll dive into, like, it's a high butter fat. It's a little bit more egg yolk. But to me, what I've found, I am not the custard expert, but what I have found over the last year of kind of doing this business is it's really about the air content. I think that's what makes the biggest difference. Because I know you could make a custard base and then you could freeze it like you do a hard scoop ice cream, and it's going to still give you more of a hard scoop ice cream experience. So to me, it's the air content. And so frozen custard made in a continuous batch or a continuous flow freezer has virtually no air content. So that's what gives you the really like rich mouthfeel. I think it makes the flavors more intense. So our vanilla is like very vanilla-y. Our chocolate is very chocolate. And I think it's because you're getting so much product in your mouth each bite. Whereas like your hard scoop ice cream has a lot more air just churned into it. So it's just not quite as dense. So to me, that's the big difference. But again, if you Google it, it's like has to have so much butter fat and has to have so much egg yolk, which, you know, obviously our custard has that as well.
Yeah, we don't need to get all technical. We can just talk about you're packing as much flavor as possible into each scoop, which is something that I'm a huge fan of. So we've talked about the flavor a little bit, but what about the texture? That creation process, using more eggs, using more butter fat, having less air incorporated. What does that do to the texture and the mouthfeel of the product?
Yeah, it's definitely a very creamy product, and it's soft. And creamy, and a lot of that has to do, again, with the air content. It's served at a higher temperature because it is so dense that if you put it in your freezer at home or like at a temperature where hard scoop ice cream is served at, it gets really hard. Actually, it turns to stone. I've accidentally left a bucket in the freezer before, and you're not going to get it out unless you have like a diamond cutter. It's very, very dense, so it gets very solid. So at the store, it's served at a higher temperature, and then we do have take-home pints. I always try to remember to tell anybody that purchases those to leave them in your refrigerator for like 15 minutes before trying to scoop it out. Otherwise, you'll be like, what? There's no way I'm getting this out.
Good workout, potentially.
Yeah. Get a workout in and then eat some calories.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, so it really, like, I think it's, again, comes down to that air content that makes it so much creamier and soft. That Does that answer?
That answers the question beautifully.
Okay.
So, over the course of this conversation, I hope that there are many people who are going to go, wow, this sounds really good. I need to go check out Sprinkle Joy. Where the heck is this? Of course, you can always Google it. I encourage people to do that. But 96 and Giles, that's about where you're going to find Sprinkle Joy. And there's kind of a strip mall area, but good signage. It's up there. Look for it. You're going to want to find this place. So I did a little bit of research into the history of custard coming into this because I was honestly kind of curious. The American version of custard was invented by Archie and Elton Core, who were ice cream makers in Coney Island, New York, and they realized that adding egg yolks to their ice cream made it not melt as fast, which you just mentioned, and it would last longer during hot afternoon walks on the boardwalk. Now, you started your company in Georgia. You now operate it in Omaha, Nebraska, and we're entering a week right now where there's like heat advisories like crazy. So you are well aware of what the summer heat and humidity can do to your product. What is it about this product that serves really well in those environments?
Yeah, I mean, it's a frozen treat, so you can't go wrong. It's interesting. I didn't know that about egg yolk not letting it melt as fast. So you taught me something. Like I said, I'm not the custard expert by any means, but that's interesting. I wonder, because our product is served at a higher temperature at the store, and that keeps it creamier. And I wonder if maybe that's kind of what allows custard to be served at a little bit of a higher temperature, because I know if like hard scoop, I thought it was the air content, which I think probably contributes to it as well. But,
I'm sure it's both.
Yeah, but because if you keep a hard scoop ice cream or a soft serve ice cream at the temperature that custard's kept at, it just melts. So that's interesting.
I actually just experienced this past week. My wife and I, we took a vacation to Charleston, South Carolina, and we went to a ice cream shop, and they had both gelato and they had soft serve ice cream. Sarah got soft serve, I got gelato, and we were walking out on a boardwalk, and it was a hot day, not egregiously hot, but poor Sarah, she's having one of those experiences where, I mean, she can't eat it fast enough. It is just melting all down the cone. It's in her hand. She was literally eating it like over the water because she didn't just want to spill all over herself. And I felt terrible, but I'm just sitting there. I'm like licking it. I'm having a good time. Mine stayed cold and stayed solid so much longer. And I thought that was fascinating. I was like, why is that? And then I started prepping for this podcast, and I was like, oh, there might actually be a reason for it.
Yeah. Does gelato have less air content too? I feel like it might. It has a very... So when you look at the ingredients, gelato is actually like quite the opposite of custard. I think it's like a lower fat option, a lower sugar option. But when I eat gelato, I'm like, this kind of has a similar mouthfeel. So I almost wonder if...
Gelato contains less air than American ice cream.
There you go.
Wow. We are both learning things today. This is beautiful.
This is great.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the flavor and how you offer vanilla, you offer chocolate, and custard just really intensifies those flavors. Now, you offer plenty of mix-ins and fruits and syrups. Like, the ability to customize on your menu is very, very strong. But when you're just looking at those base flavors, why did you stick with those two?
Yeah, good question. I think I just kind of went with what the industry does to start out with. My shop, when I opened in Georgia, was in a really small town, and so our throughput wasn't very high. So I just kind of decided to stick with those. And, thought like, okay, we'll see how this goes and go from there. When I decided to move it and reopen in Omaha, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do like a rotating flavor and do all these fun things, which I would love to do. We get asked to do it sometimes. The difficulty that I'm realizing, still learning, always learning, is that I have I have the smallest model of the continuous flow freezer. It makes one flavor at a time. A lot of times your bigger production custard shops will have multiple machines, or they'll have a machine that makes like 4 flavors at one time. So what I'm learning is like, we make it every day. So if I had vanilla, chocolate, we are adding a dairy-free option. We tested it and got really great feedback on that. So
nice.
So that's exciting. Still working with our food supplier on getting that. But so we'll have a vanilla, we'll have a dairy-free vanilla, and then we'll have a chocolate. And so those 3 flavors I would kind of basically make every day. And so if we had a situation, I try to make enough every day to leave a little bit for the morning, because then if I had to make all 3 of those flavors every day, every morning, I'd have to go into the ice cream shop at like 6 a.m. Because it takes like a couple hours to make each bucket. So then I'm realizing, oh, well, if I add like another flavor, like a strawberry, or I would love to do a lemon. I'm a lemon fan. I'm like, oh no, I think like logistically I would run into some challenges. For example, we've ran out of ice cream the night before a couple of times. And so I go in early to try and make enough. But sometimes I don't get to the chocolate before I'm done make the vanilla first and then make the chocolate. So sometimes I don't get to the chocolate before we run out of it. And so trying to avoid running out of too many flavors. For now, we're just keeping it vanilla chocolate and a dairy-free. I might do like a surprise, like, oh, we have strawberry today, something kind of fun like that. But as far as like getting it permanently on our menu or always doing a rotating flavor, probably going to hold off for now, just because, again, my machine is a smaller model and logistically we make it every day. So that would be a little bit challenging.
Well, here's the nice thing, Hannah. In staying to vanilla and chocolate, you are doing what the big boys do. you like, I did some research. Yeah, like
they might have had a reason for what they did.
I went and I looked. Milwaukee is the custard capital of the world, and a couple of their biggest shops, Kopp's, and I think I'm pronouncing this right, Gillis, whichever one it is, they do chocolate and vanilla, and they might have a daily flavor as well, but those are the 2 standards on the menu. And even Culver's, the giant, the custard conglomerate, yes, they've got their daily flavor, but if you go in every single day, you're going to get vanilla, you're going to get chocolate. So, yeah, I mean, it would be fun to offer a strawberry, a lemon, something else, but I think when people are going for that custard experience, maybe there's something about those 2 flavors. Like, I've never thought about this before, but like, he talked about, that vanilla is because of the way that it's created. It has less air. It's so sweet. It's so aromatic. It's just so vanilla-y. Maybe that doesn't work as well with other flavors. Like, I don't know. I've never had a lemon custard, but maybe it's got a little too much pucker to it. I don't know. I would be more than willing to try it, but maybe there's a reason that we stick to chocolate and vanilla. I don't know. Yeah,
I think it is just part of the custard experience of vanilla and chocolate. I grew up with frozen custard, and it was always vanilla and chocolate. So I mean, I love creative flavors, and I will probably experiment with them at some point. But I think you're right, and I think the way my shop and most custard shops are built are like the toppings and the add-ins are kind of also part of the experience. You go to a traditional hard scoop ice cream place, and like you don't usually, or at least I don't usually add toppings on top of the flavor, because those flavors are already crafted and created for you. But the custard at a custard shop, you're kind of, the toppings are part of the experience. You're adding the toppings and the flavors that you want into your ice cream. So I think that's part of the custard experience, and I like that, but at the same time, I also like playing with different flavors. So it wouldn't be out of the question for me to try some fun flavors every once in a while. But yeah, for sure, chocolate and vanilla, and then the customer gets to do whatever they want with the toppings.
Well, let's talk about that, because you do offer all kinds of different options. You've got a couple of house-made syrups. You've got some different cookies and things that can be incorporated. Also, all kinds of different candies that one might expect. Huge fan of the Andes mints. Love that you guys offer that. But you also have 6 house favorites that are kind of created creations where it's like you can make anything you want. These are things that we've tried and tested and we think are really good. How did you come up with those?
Well, I think that's part of like the creative process that I find fun. I could probably sit there all day and come up with house favorites. I have to reel myself in. Like, okay, people don't want 20 options of house favorites. And same with the toppings. Like, I could put 200 different things on the menu for toppings. Like, that's just fun for me. How I came up with this menu, I think it was a combination of, I thought of things that like I've really liked either growing up. For example, the mint to be that's on our menu, the house favorite. It's vanilla and chocolate frozen custard and Andes mints, and then the scratch made hot fudge. When I worked at a frozen custard shop in high school, that's what I usually made myself. I remember the owner was a family friend, and I remember him saying he tested like 100 different hot fudge recipes. I've never been a hot fudge fan. And I was like, well, he sought out this supplier, like, I will try it. It was so good. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I do like hot fudge. So that's really the only place I've ever eaten hot fudge other than at my shop. So making the hot fudge really delicious was important to me. But yeah, that one came from my time at working at a frozen custard shop in high school. I really like pretzels in my frozen custard. I love the salty sweet combination. Usually my go-to is like caramel and pretzels. But I also really like, growing up, going to frozen custard shops, I would get Reese's peanut butter cups. I think that's what I got when I was a kid, and I would make my parents drive across town to go to the frozen custard shop, because 20-minute drive is totally worth it for frozen custard. For me, even as, I don't know, I was probably like 10, and I still remember, no, I want to go to the one across town, and I would always get Reese's peanut butter cups mixed into vanilla. And so then I don't know, a few times I just tried it with Snickers, even at Dairy Queen. Like, when frozen custard wasn't an option, I would get Reese's peanut butter cups, and Snickers was kind of like my go-to. So I was like, oh, that would be good with pretzels, because it had a little bit salty and some crunch in there. So that's kind of where like the Candy Crunch, which is peanut butter cups, Snickers, and pretzels mixed in vanilla, that's where that one came from. So like, it's just a combination of like what I find delicious, what I've grown up with, and then just some fun things too. I had to put sprinkles somewhere in
it's
one
in
of
the
them.
name, yeah.
So I thought sprinkles and sugar cookies made a lot of sense. So that's the Sprinkle Yum, vanilla custard, sprinkles, and sugar cookies. So yeah.
Something that keeps coming up in our conversation is like, so much of this business is tied to memories that you have. It's the memories of making your own creation at the custard shop where you worked in high school. It's the memories of, oh yeah, my parents would drive 20 minutes across town to get me specifically frozen custard because that's what I wanted. How closely is nostalgia tied in with this business?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think a lot of this journey of opening this shop, first in Georgia and now in Omaha, I've realized, like, wow, a lot of things from my past have really been tying together. Did I think I was going to open any kind of ice cream shop when I worked at the frozen custard shop in high school? Absolutely not. No, I thought I was going to be in Washington, D.C., being some kind of economic policy assistant or something.
I mean, I was going to play in the NBA when I was in high school, so
it's never too late.
Same lofty goals. Haven't quite gotten there yet, but
well, you should do that. I don't want to be a politician. Ice cream's way better.
I agree.
So, yeah, I think it's just like, even when I kind of made the decision to open an ice cream shop in Georgia, I wasn't necessarily thinking like, I loved working at the shop in high school. Like, this makes sense. It kind of just like, I've been going along this path, and when I reflect, I'm like, oh, of course that makes sense. Of course that happened that way. So yeah, there is, ice cream in general, probably for a lot of people, is very nostalgic, and same for me.
What's your first memory of frozen custard?
Yeah, probably driving across town to go to the frozen custard shop in Kansas City. It was at least 20 minutes away.
What made that place special?
Oh, man. That's a good question. I don't know. I just remember, like, it had a walk-up window, which a lot of frozen custard places do, and it's mostly outside. It's just everybody has a good time. Like, nobody upset. It's just fun, carefree kind of environment. I remember my parents and my brother all going, so probably ties into my family too. And yeah, it just kind of felt like a special trip to go out there.
So when you get this job at a custard shop in high school, was that like something that you were super excited about? Like, yes, I've loved custard. Like, this is my opportunity to make it. Or was it more just like, I got to make money somehow. Parents are kicking me out of the house. I may as well go make some custard. Well, what went into that decision?
Good question. Again, I think just happenstance. A lot of this has just been, happenstance. I'm a Christian, so I believe that God's plan is well in work here. But I think, again, reflecting back, I was sacking groceries at a grocery store. And then I think my mom or dad ran into our family friend, and they mentioned that they had opened a frozen custard shop. And I think my parents knew I wasn't a huge fan of sacking groceries. And so they, I think, were like, well, are you hiring? Because, she might be interested. So it was really as simple as that. Like, I didn't really seek out trying to work at an ice cream shop or anything like that. It was really just kind of a coincidence, and a small thing that at the time I didn't think it meant anything, and now here we are. And obviously, it's like a big part of my past, even though I think I only worked there for 6 months. It wasn't like a big part of my childhood by any means. It just feels bigger now, right? Because of where I've been led, what I've been led to do. So always kind of a coincidence. But
so a lot of time passes between kind of when you're home, when you're growing up, when custard is kind of starting to form some of these core memories. You get married, you start a family, you move with your husband. When does the idea of custard as more than just, something I'll enjoy as a treat enter your mind? Was it always kind of there, or how did it pop up?
Yeah, good question. So again, this is it feels really random when I'm answering questions like this, but when I look back at the whole story, it's not that random. But so gosh, I graduated college in I'm going to date myself, but 2014. And I went to college in St. Louis, and I loved getting frozen custard at Ted Drew's in St. Louis. Again, another moment of nostalgia. But then, I met my husband. We moved to Washington State. I was in a corporate job there, and I've always been kind of driven and to come up to do something on my own. I've always come up with little business ideas and never really acted on them, just always kind of found it fun to think of different businesses. And then we moved to Georgia, and even in Georgia, 3 years passed before I decided to open an ice cream shop. But I think the seed kind of got planted when we moved to Georgia, because I was flabbergasted that there wasn't ice cream shops. We lived in a small town, and there was a Dairy Queen. And I was like, wow, there's not an ice cream shop. I just kind of kept thinking that, in the back of my mind, for probably about 2-ish plus years after being there. And then I started kind of thinking about it, if I did open an ice cream shop, I would do this and I would do that, and I would, have certain, I was just thinking about general ideas. Again, never thinking I was actually going to do it. And then we were at church, and my pastor started this sermon on the Holy Spirit being in everybody. And, he told a story about kind of listening to the inner voice, and he acted on that, and it was really profound for him. And I was like, hold on. Is this inner voice telling me, like, is that what's been in the back of my mind this whole time? Like, open the ice cream shop. So I think then, like, the dots all kind of connected. Like, I've always wanted to open my own thing. I've been, questioning why there's not an ice cream shop, like a local little cute ice cream shop in this town. And now here I am sitting at church and, receiving the message of listen to your inner voice. And I'm like, oh, okay, got it. And then, I just started, I hadn't made the decision. It was kind of just research, talking to my husband, talking to other local business owners, looking at if there was a viable path to do that in a small town, especially knowing that my husband could get orders to leave within the year. So that all kind of just aligned. I found a great place to be in Georgia. It was a co-op. And so the startup cost, the barrier to entry was really feasible. So that seemed like a great sign to kind of just get up and going. So I did it. My husband was super supportive. Seems crazy to like know that you're potentially moving in a year to start a business. But I think just like God's plan was like, hey, you can do it in this spot. You don't have to sign a 5-year commercial lease. You don't have to, do all. There was just not a lot of stuff that I really had to do that probably would have scared me away from doing it. So I did it and learned that, like, okay, I can do this. Got enough experience in that 6 months, and then found out where we were leaving, which was a curveball. But again, I think part of the plan, and realized that Omaha needed a local frozen custard spot. So yeah,
we definitely did. I'm a man of faith too, and I believe that everything happens in our lives for a reason. And I just love being able to go back and look at your life and seeing all these random little touch points, all these little pinpricks that at the time don't seem like anything, and they don't look like anything isolated. But when you scale back and you see how all these little seeds were planted over time to create this idea in you at the perfect time to launch it, it's so fun to do that. You said your husband was very supportive. Do you remember the first serious conversation that you had with him about this? Or it wasn't just like, oh, there's not a custard shop here, I wonder what it would be like to start that. But you were like, hey, I think I want to like do this. What was his reaction?
Yeah, poor husband. He knows this about me. He knows that I come up with these ideas and I talk about it. I've been doing it ever since we met. So I don't know if he really realized how serious I was. Maybe I didn't realize how serious I was either. Because I was, honest with myself, honest with him. Like, if we can't find a place that's going to work with the potential move in the future, then I just won't do it. Then it obviously doesn't make sense. But I remember the first conversation, I think it was after church, in the church kitchen. There was a local business. They owned the local coffee shop. And I kind of just went up to him and was like, hey, I'm thinking about opening this ice cream shop, blah, blah, blah. My husband just standing there. So, like, he's, I've had the conversation with him, but I think that was the first time that maybe I felt serious about it, and he probably picked up on that too. So I don't know what his exact reaction was, because I wasn't even asking him. But we had a lot of conversations with it, about it since then. And I think, he's a very practical person. Like I'm practical too, but I'm an entrepreneur, dreamer as well. So, he was like, as long as you can X, Y, and Z, find something that makes sense. And then when we found out the move, he was also very supportive about, well, that was a roller coaster ride of, do I sell it? Do I close it and like call it quits? Do I reopen in Omaha? And what does that look like? And so that was a roller coaster. And yeah, he was always very supportive. It's been stressful at times, very stressful at times. And so, self-doubt is not something that's foreign to me. And, he's been supportive through that. I think there's been times where we both have been questioning, like, should we have done this? Is this really something that makes sense? But at the end of the day, I think he trusts my judgment. That's really, really, really important and special. That's why he's my husband. He's a great guy.
We'll get to the move to Omaha here shortly, but we can't skip over a very important step. It's one thing to be a huge fan of custard and to enjoy eating custard. It's an entirely different process to learn how to make it, and not only just like make it for yourself, but make it at scale. So we can serve potentially hundreds of customers every day. What was that process like for you? How did you learn how to make custard?
Yeah, that's a good question. So like I said, I did work at a custard shop in high school, so I had a little bit of familiarity with it. However, I only worked there for, like I said, I don't think it was more than 6 months. I can't really remember. I should go back and look at the timeline, but it wasn't super long, and I never learned how to operate the custard machine. So when I started looking into opening an ice cream shop in Georgia, and when I kind of decided that frozen custard made sense, because I personally believe it's the best frozen dessert, and it doesn't exist really in the South. Culver's is growing exponentially in the South, but outside of Culver's, there's not really a lot of like mom and pop shops or just like local places doing it. That's much more in like the upper Midwest where you find a lot of those. But I was like, well, this just makes sense. So then I did kind of have to do a lot of research, talk to some different people. Luckily, people in the ice cream industry are super nice.
Open book?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I found, and maybe I just got lucky, but I've found that everybody that I've talked to has been very helpful, very encouraging. So I was able to, find a few people that would kind of just walk me through, like, no, you want this machine, and these are the differences between the machines. And I did a kind of a deep dive into, I do use a base for the frozen custard. And so I did a deep dive into the suppliers because I knew the quality of the base was really going to be the differentiating factor. So, looked into that. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of like running into people that were willing to share with me. So, because I'm still learning. So, yeah, that's it.
I mean, you've brought that up several times during this conversation. You've said, I'm not a custard expert. I don't necessarily, have the answer to every question about custard, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You're constantly learning. Has that always, I mean, even when we're not talking about custard and talking about this business, has that always been your mindset? Have you just always been a very open, willing person?
I don't think so. I'm not going to give myself that much credit. My mom would tell you that I've probably, like, in my teen years was definitely a know-it-all. So, like, that's probably been a maturity thing of, like, no, I don't know, even something that I own a business for. Like, I don't know everything. There's people out here that have been doing it much longer than me. And I don't know. I think I've also just like learned, like, if you stay open-minded and you stay curious, things are more exciting and like more, you can improve that way, right? Like your growth mindset, I suppose. Trying to adopt that, and it's been pretty easy in my business, because it's easy for me to realize, like, I'm green, I'm new, figuring this out. So yeah, but part of the business journey is learning a lot about myself, which has been good. It's been hard, but it's been good. So I think, it's easy for me to be like, no, I'm new at this. No, I don't know X, Y, and Z. I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about the business. I'm learning about what it's like to have a business. I didn't have, even though I would always come up with business ideas, this is the first business that I've actually opened. I've been a consultant for a couple of like my old corporate jobs. So I had like my own LLC, but not like actually my own business. So yeah, I think that it's just kind of, that part has been pretty easy for me to just kind of stay open-minded and always learning and always curious. And at the same time, just learning a lot of other things about myself.
What has this process taught you about yourself?
Yeah. Well, I joked about the to-do list on the way in here. I am a doer. I just like things to be done, get it done, have it done. And so I've always prided myself on, if I have a to-do list, like, it's going to be done. And since opening a business, the to-do list is literally never done. Like, never. I could come up with 10,000 things to do today. And my mind kind of works that way. Like, it just pings from one idea to the next idea to the next idea. And so then the list is really never ending. And so I've had to learn that, like, it's okay to not have everything done. And I'm still learning to be at peace with that. But I do still keep to-do lists, and I just have to be like, get this thing done today, this one thing or two things. And then there's tomorrow. There's still tomorrow where you can do other things. So that's been a hard lesson, of like, it's okay if not everything's done. Are the important things done? Yes. So reminding myself of that. And then, I'm still learning the lesson of like I mentioned, like, self-doubt, and I've always been an achiever. So, if we have if something goes wrong at the shop, or if sales are a little slow for the day, which, saying it out loud, like, we've been open for 2 months, like, what are my expectations, and like, where's reality? But like, I'm, just kind of like hard on myself sometimes, which is probably widespread amongst achievers. And so learning that doing things on your own is not for the faint of heart. If it weren't for my faith, I would probably have had some moments that were really tough. So I'm just grateful that I can lean back on that and know that there's a plan. And if it's not going the way I want it to, it's not supposed to go the way I want it to. And just kind of taking a step back and not getting worked up over things that are seemingly important, but in the grand scheme of things, we're still moving forward and there's a plan. So, yeah.
You opened your custard shop, then called The Sweet Life, in Georgia in May of 2024. Yep. So you've got all this nostalgia. You've had this idea percolating in your brain for a couple years. You finally execute on it. You learn how to make custard. You learn how to start a business. What were those first couple months like? Was it everything that you expected? Or what curveballs were thrown at you? Just however you want to answer that question, just go for it.
Yeah. Let's see. I think so. There was a lot of curveballs thrown at me just because I won't get into the weeds, but some things didn't go to plan, and so that was a little difficult. But I think overall, just like interacting with the customers and like having those positive experiences of like, oh wow, this is really delicious. Like I remember a little girl asked me like, how do you make your ice cream so good? And I'm like, well, surprise, it's frozen custard. It's a little bit different. And so just like those things are exactly like what I wanted, right? Like I just want to have like positive interactions with people, and I think that's why I kind of pivoted the name to Sprinkle Joy, because it's really just all about those little interactions of joy that are really what I'm after. So yes, in Georgia, I think yes and no. Like, yes, I think the foundation of the business, I realized like this is a viable thing. People like it. I can do it. And then, like, I think I learned in Georgia, again, part of the plan, like, oh, this small town in Georgia is maybe not, like, large enough to support this business. So, which is unfortunate because it's a cute little town. But so then when we found out we were moving, it was maybe kind of like, it didn't feel like good timing at the time. But, like, I think hindsight, like, it probably was good for me to pivot somewhere else to a larger market of Omaha is a much like more viable place for the business. So I took those, those lessons that I learned in Georgia, really like kind of just focusing on the positive things from Georgia, and then able to apply them in Omaha. So
you started getting into this earlier, but I want to dig into it a little bit deeper. So your husband, he's an active member of the military, and you guys knew that it was always a possibility that he could get transferred somewhere else. So you opened the Sweet Life in May. In November, you guys moved to Omaha. I'm not sure when you got the news that move was coming, but obviously that's a short amount of time. What was that decision like for you? Do I reboot the business? Because, yes, now you have a lot of the knowledge. You know how to open a shop. You know how to make custard. You've learned a lot of the things that you didn't know coming into this. But you come to Omaha. Omaha is a totally different market. It's completely different than what you're used to. You have to completely reestablish yourself as a business. Like any equity that you built up with the community before, bam, you're starting from ground zero. You've got to get a whole new employee base. You've got to learn new code, rules, regulations, and Nebraska and Omaha, probably different than Georgia. I can imagine that there's this internal battle in your mind where one side is just like, I can do this. I've proven I can do this. And then there's the other side that's just like, I got to do it all. I got to start from ground zero again. Are you kidding me? I can't do that. What was that internal battle like for you?
Oh, yeah, that was a tough one. That was definitely a roller coaster. We found out that we were moving to Omaha. I think it was 2 weeks after I had opened in Georgia.
Of course.
Yeah, I think it was less than a month. So it was kind of, we had time we had a little bit of time to kind of think about it and figure it out. And we looked at all of that. Me and my husband looked at all of the options. I did think about selling it. I think the tough thing there was I did really want to reopen it. I did want to keep doing it. Did I want to reopen it in Omaha and do all of that work? Not necessarily, but I wanted to keep doing it. And I knew that. But at the same time, like you said, did I want to do all that work? Was it going to be possible? I'm obviously married and we have a 3-year-old. And so, family time is very important to us as well. And so it's kind of like you're juggling all of these things. What's really worth it? And the internal battle is intense. But I think just focusing on how I was really feeling and what I was really wanting to do, seems like maybe it should have been an easy decision. Hindsight's 20/20. But I knew I wanted to keep doing it. So even though we, put some feelers out to sell it in Georgia, it was like, well, I don't want to sell it for less than, and like take too big of a loss and then not be able to reopen it in Omaha. So that decision so that was kind of off the table kind of quickly. And then it was kind of like, okay, do we just sell the equipment and not try again? Which was probably an option up until I found a place to open in Omaha. So we got here in November, and I looked and looked and looked, and just the expense, so the first hurdle is, a lot of real estate leases are like 5 years, which wasn't really an option for me with my husband still being in the military. We feel confident that we'll be here for like 3 years, but you never know. Mm-hmm. And then about a 5-year lease is a stretch. So like a 3-year lease, I was like, maybe. So we looked at some that would have considered a 3-year lease, and the space that I needed was pretty unique because I didn't need a full-blown restaurant, but if I had to do construction to, get some of the infrastructure that I needed, then it was really expensive. So it was still, even when we got to Omaha, I still didn't know if I was going to open it or not. So that was a roller coaster. I think we got really close to opening somewhere, and then kind of last minute, we were working on a contract, and then last minute, we're told that wasn't going to work. So that was, again, a roller coaster. That was kind of a big bummer because I thought, like, we're going to do this. So then I think that's when I reached out to you, and I was like, hey, do you know of any places? I
wasn't much help.
No, that's okay. But you were encouraging. Yeah, so because that was real, I was really bummed then because I felt like we were close. And so then I think my husband and I were like, okay, we'll give it like another month or two, and I'll just really, really try, get as creative and crafty as possible. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. So then I gave it another push, and I have a score mentor. Hey, Jay. Thanks, Jay. He connected me to the owner of Elegant Edge, which is the catering company that I share a space with now. She had her front of the house cafe that she wasn't using. And so she was willing to let me rent that out, which is like really perfect. Again, like if there's ever any clear signs from God, it's like, hey, this is your spot. As it didn't need a lot of construction. I think it's in a good, we're not visible from the street, so that's a little bit challenging, but it's like the neighborhoods around it are great. We've had a lot of great support from the community. So that internal battle never ended. I think until like the machine, my equipment was like moved into my spot that I'm open now. So the internal battle was intense for a while. But I think deep down I just knew I wanted to do it. So
Thursday, May 15th. That was your first day open in Omaha. What do you remember most about that day?
Oh, man. So I think that was a Thursday. And we had done like a training week before with my employees, and we kind of invited like friends and families to come out and help get them trained up with like hands-on experience. And then Thursday was my first day, and I think my husband came with my kid, and they got us some pizza and brought it into the store. And I couldn't sit down. We were so busy. I was like, I'm sorry, like I can't enjoy pizza with you guys. We were busy. People were happy. People were telling me like, oh, like, I heard about you from my friend, or I think it might have been the next day, the Friday, somebody came in and was like, oh, someone posted on like the Nextdoor app that they walked to this new ice cream shop. I'm like, that's fabulous. That's awesome. Just a lot. I mean, really like Exactly. They went perfectly. They went great. The community was awesome. Lots of support. Lots of people telling their friends about us, which is awesome. So yeah, ever since opening, it's been really great. I enjoy all of the interactions with the customers and everything that I'm able to do. As you know, we give 5% back of our sales to rotating charities, and being able to work with those charities has been really special to me. It's a big part of wanting to open the ice cream shop. I've always wanted to give back to the community. So the support from the community allows me to do that, and I really couldn't be happier about that.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight that before we round down here is every month you don't just pick a charity, you have customers submit charities and then people can vote on them. Mm-hmm. So your first 2 months open, you guys supported 50 Mile March and Humble and Kind. So yeah, 5% of all sales going to a local charity. That's really cool, and I want to commend you on that.
Thanks.
On a much less important scale, but something that I'm really curious in, have you noticed any considerable differences between the palates of Nebraska and Georgia? Is there anything that sold really well down there that hasn't translated up here, or you come up here and you're like, geez, everybody here just loves chocolate. We're selling 70% chocolate, and it was 50-50 down there. Is there anything like that pops off?
That's interesting. I think we do sell a little bit more chocolate than we did down in Georgia, but not anything crazy. I'm trying to think. I think it's really similar, actually. Yeah. I will say in Georgia, or maybe it's just generally the Southeast, they love snow cones. So that was an interesting observation that I had when I was down there. Nothing to do with my ice cream shop. I was like, oh. There's lots
competitor
of snow.
Research.
There's lots of snow cone places in the Southeast, but not a lot of ice cream shops in the Southeast. So no, I don't think there's been any big difference. I have brought to my store. So I used to live close to a pecan farm. Pecan farm, sorry. I grew up saying pecan.
You can say it however you want to say it.
Well, in Georgia, they do say pecan.
This is your podcast.
They grow the most pecans in Georgia, so maybe. I grew up saying pecan, and then when we moved to Georgia, now I say pecan. But we lived next to the pecan farm, and they had a bakery, and they make these. Well, they bake their pecan brittle into cookies, and then those cookies are delicious. So I brought those up here, and they've been received well. So I don't know. I think similar palates. Everybody thinks it's delicious. At least that's what they tell me.
I would agree with that. I'm amongst that army that says it's delicious. Last question I got for you here, and this might sound like an insane question considering you've only been open 2 months, and really, going back about a year and 2 months is when you opened the Sweet Life. But when you look at the future of Sprinkle Joy, and obviously, with your husband's career, there is some uncertainty there. We should acknowledge that. But looking at the future of Sprinkle Joy and what you hope it will be, what do you see in the future?
Yeah, I think just continuing to do what I'm doing and keeping it viable is really, really my main goal. I don't have big ambitions of making it the next custard franchise. That'd be cool, but my ambition is really just to continue to be a happy place for the community to come, a happy place for inside the store and outside the store. So I think, if my ambition lays anywhere, it's just growing the community impact. I would say, increasing the amount of charities that we can support, and continuing to welcome happy customers, have great employees. My employees are great. And, I think that, maybe it's simple, but
maybe lemon custard one day.
Maybe that's
Who knows?
it. Yeah.
We're not going to promise anything, but maybe.
Yes.
It's always a possibility.
Yes.
Well, you have established something that I think is really cool, and I don't just say this because you're sitting here right now or because I consider you a friend, but I think your product is delicious. And it is something that's different from a hard scooped ice cream. And I can go crazy on hard scooped ice cream or soft serve, either way. But there's sometimes when your palate just wants something very specific. And if that is custard, I'm going to be coming to Sprinkle Joy. People, that's exactly what you should be doing. Go 96 in Giles. Go visit Hannah. Check out Sprinkle Joy. I think you will be like me. You'll just taste it and be like, okay, this is something worth getting excited about. Hannah, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.